an act of political naivete, for 30 years, Yerevan has confided in the supremacy of international law when dealing with Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. What are the messages we receive from the international community when it comes to Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict, though? Major players support the dialogue, the, quote, efforts to reach sustainable peace in the region, unquote. Keep talking with Baku, in other words. Keep your seat around the same table of negotiations. This pushes the button for nostalgic throwbacks to times of relative, but still a very volatile peace, a 30-year-long truce, and 30 years of heated dialogue under the auspices of major players, the United States, Russia and France, the co-chairs of the OSCE and Minsk group that was established in 1992 to mediate negotiated peace for Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict over the Nagorno-Karabakh region. 30 years of peace negotiations that in fact served as a veil for Baku to launch revanche. The established four basic principles that reflected a reasonable compromise based on the principles of the non-use of force, territorial integrity, and the equal rights and self-determination sunk into oblivion when Azerbaijan attacked Nagorno-Karabakh and forcibly displaced ethnic Armenians from Menkai. Where is international law in all this? In this episode, I will challenge UN senior legal advisor Sheila Paylan to reinstill Yerevan's lost faith in international law. International human rights lawyer and United Nations senior consultant Sheila Paylan will sit down with the public radio tonight. Sheila, thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks for having me.
The 44-day war and its subsequent violations, the blockade of Lachen corridor and the forced displacement of ethnic Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh, the incursion of Armenia proper, I have enumerated only a few of Azerbaijan's crimes. Baku has seen no consequences for all that I enumerated, has paid no price. We are losing our faith in international law. Help us regain it.
That's the first question. Wow, that's a big one. A tall order. It's what I always say to anyone who says the same thing about human rights, like they don't exist anymore and, international law is not working. It's just not true. It is working. You can't see a negative. You can't see something that's not happening. And if you do away with international law, the international legal order, if you do away with rights, you have a state of total anarchy. So the system is not perfect. And of course, it's true, there's not been accountability for Azerbaijan's crimes. It's something that we are working on constantly since the first day of the 44-day war. The European Court of Human Rights, the International Court of Justice, ratification of the Rome Statute. Justice takes time. It takes time. And so there's no sense in losing faith. Before international laws existed, the world was just in a state of complete chaos. These have been developed over time. Wars used to be extremely, they still are. Wars always gory and full of death and full of blood and full of horror. But with the rules of law in place, you can't deny that there has been a change in conduct. Parties are a little bit more careful in the way that they conduct war. So, yeah, I hope I've reinstilled faith in 5 seconds, but I would just invite you to think of the alternative. And to live in a lawless world would be much, much worse.
Azerbaijan, as you know, has been pushing for the withdrawal of legal claims as a precondition for the peace treaty. Pashinyan recently suggested that both sides could actually drop cases once, quote, real peace is restored, unquote. As a legal expert, how would you comment? Is it a good idea to drop cases, even if mutually?
I wouldn't say it's a good idea. I think it's a political act, not a legal one. You drop in a purely legal sense, you drop a case if you don't have a case. We have a case. We have a very strong case. We're actually winning. So it's sort of...
Which is exactly why Baku has propose that we withdraw the cases, right? That's because our case is strong. Am I correct?
That's my assessment. That is my opinion as well. I think it's almost quite objective that we are doing very well and that we are winning. And call me biased, but I do think that we're on the right side here. That being said, it's not unusual for peace treaties or peace agreements to come with amnesties or, this statement by the Prime Minister has gotten a lot of criticism, but it's not unusual and it's almost logical if we are at peace. There's like a chicken and egg thing here. I think people are concerned that we're going to drop the cases and then we still won't have peace. I don't think that Azerbaijan is a good faith actor. I don't think that they're going to keep the peace even if we get the treaty. But in theory, if we are at peace, if we've signed a treaty, there is a valid reason to drop the cases because we're meant to try to move forward on a clean slate. Now, in reality, I simply don't see that the peace treaty will hold, given Azerbaijan's very aggressive behavior. And so the end result would be that we would not only lose peace, and also we would lose justice. That would be the worst case scenario for me. So these cases are going really well. They are leading us to peace, and so it's really up to Azerbaijan to decide how soon it wants to get serious about peace, because the cases are they're going to end at some point. We're going to get the verdicts, and it's looking good for us. So,
even if we have the peace treaty in place, withdrawing the cases from international courts, will it not leave us defenseless against a raging enemy?
Defenseless how? Legally defenseless. Our defenses are going to be based on military weapons for the most part. Lawfare is a much more peaceful way of resolving disputes, and it will not leave us defenseless. I think it makes it much harder to launch a case of that sort again if you drop it. In some cases, it makes it impossible, but you don't have to make it impossible. You can drop a case without prejudice. And also, we haven't done anything at the ICC yet. So, I do really sincerely hope that we don't drop the cases. This is about the victims, but victims also have different ways of seeking justice, and very importantly, part of the peace treaty or agreement should involve a justice component. I've said this many times. If you drop the cases, you still need to find a way to reconcile and seek the truth as to what happened, because it's very artificial otherwise to simply say, okay, we're at peace. Like, what do you mean? Are we going to talk about what happened? Are we going to give reparations to victims? Most of these victims on our side the wounds are so fresh. It would be re-traumatizing for them, I think, to simply have their cases dropped or the situation dropped without an alternative. But I could see it being like something that Armenia and Azerbaijan come up with together to create.
You mentioned ICC. This is a tool in our legal toolbox that has not been used yet.
Yeah.
Why? And do you think that it should be used? Because after all, it could be a good prevention because it enables to hold Baku military and political leadership individually responsible for crimes and could have a preventive effect.
I think that it's definite. I think the time is not now. If we are in the process of trying to seek a peace treaty, it kind of goes against the spirit of seeking peace. And the best time to launch a case of that, or like to refer a case of that nature, it would have been September last year or September the year before, September 2023, when the exodus, the forced displacement was happening, or when Azerbaijan invaded Armenia the year prior. But we were not a member of the ICC at the time. This was an issue. So by the time ICC gained jurisdiction over Armenia, many months had passed and the momentum had passed. Of course, it's not a bar. Like we can refer the case at any time. Anyone can. Any member state of the ICC can. But if we're in a state now where like let's drop our arms, let's stop this insanity, I can see why the Armenian government wouldn't do that at the moment. But it's a tool, it's a weapon, it's a threat, it's always there. So Azerbaijan knows if you misbehave again, I really think we're going to do it. Like, I would be upset if we didn't. I wouldn't understand how we could not possibly refer a case if they invaded us again.
Armenia has filed 4 interstate complaints against Azerbaijan at the European Court of Human Rights and ICJ. Which ones do you think hold water? Where do you expect a positive verdict?
Everywhere.
That's good news.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the cases, I've seen the applications, I've worked on them, so I know that they're very strong. And now, you can never predict how judges will rule, and judges tend to be very conservative, especially, I think, at the European Court of Human. They're different cases. I mean, we have to realize the ECHR is almost a much bigger case. The ICJ case is really limited to one treaty, one convention on discrimination. So it's really in the framework of that. But the ECHR has so many more violations. It would be impossible, unthinkable for me, given everything we've seen, everything that's happened, everything that's in the public domain, for us not to win at least some of these claims. It would be crazy. So Azerbaijan also has cases against us.
That was going to be my next question.
You're going to go there, yeah? Yeah, and they're not strong. They're not strong. If you look at the timing, they're always coming after us, like in a mirror attempt to simply throw the ball back in our court. It shows disingenuousness, yeah? And it's also, the claim that landmines were placed in a discriminatory fashion. I mean, landmines are inherently indiscriminate. So, there are so many holes and problems with their submissions. We've also seen that we're doing better. We're winning on. We just had the preliminary objections decision came out, and we're doing very well. ECHR, I couldn't tell you, like, that's something that just when it comes, and. But yeah, the jurisprudence is on our side. The facts are on our side. How could one find that there were no human rights violations? We've all seen them with our own eyes, and they were horrible. So,
are you saying that if the sides agree to drop cases or to withdraw claims from international courts, it's not going to be a win-win? Baku is going to win. We are going to lose. Am I correct?
We want something from them. So it was very smart for Armenia to start these cases, especially the ICJ one. For me, we have a long history of engaging with the European Court of Human Rights, but the International Court of Justice, the very first time, it is so important for Armenia as a state, as a sovereign state, to present itself there. And we have very strong legal representation, with our agent. It's remarkable. So in terms of, given that we are perhaps militarily weaker, this really brought us to a place where we had a strong bargaining chip. And it's one that I really hope the government doesn't give away for nothing. Because, most importantly, because the truth is on our side, because these cases are strong. It would be such a shame to lose them for nothing, to give them away for nothing. But we do want something. We want Baku to stop attacking us.
So basically, justice will be sacrificed to peace.
Yes. You can't have...
Is it a good deal?
If it really means peace, yeah.
Thank you. Justice takes time, she reiterates. Have patience, is her message. Will patience deliver positive results for victims at ECHR and ICJ when it comes to Baku's atrocities? Sheila is right, time will show. While Yerevan takes action and waits, Baku is impatient to turn the page. The disbanding of the OSCE in Minsk group is there yet another political caprice. But this we shall tackle in the next episode.